Suray actually sent me this projector maybe about 3 months ago. They sent it to a few people, and essentially this was going to be sold on Indiegogo, and it was pretty much a product ready to go. But a lot of us actually gave feedback to Suray and saying that, you know, this product actually gets incredibly hot. There needs to be a cap on the front of this lens. I wish, you know, the projector, the Gobo stuff sits in there nice and tight. It's not a great product. And Suray have gone, hang on, let's just delay the release of this and let's brainstorm. Let's fix this problem. Now, I do have the newer one right here. And, you know, they've literally put a plastic piece on the end here with a fan that's actually detachable. They've put a 1/4-20 mount. The Gobo set inside is actually easier to put on, a cap on the front, just a little bit of a rubber ring around the front. But also I want to show you guys the use cases. So there will be some practical applications. I literally filmed a whole video on this already because it was going to be released, and I did point out a lot of the cons in it. So that video is kind of scrapped, but I will try and use some of that BTS from that. But I want to show you exactly what you can do and how you can actually level up your cinematography just by having something like this. And look, just for a quick reference, I've got the aperture spotlight here, which is pretty much the same. And you can see with the focusing on the aperture, you have to loosen this little knob and then pull it forward and back. There isn't really sort of fine adjustments, whereas the Suray has that knob where you just dial it, and that's how you do the fine adjustments. You do have the ability to change it from 18 to 36 degrees, whereas the aperture is just one set focal length when it comes to projecting a spot. And you do actually have a fan on the back, which obviously allows it to cool down a little bit more. Also, it's a full metal design on the aperture, whereas Suray have added the plastic here to obviously stop the heat from obviously burning yourself. And the last little feature is the 1/4-20 mount that you get on the Suray, but you don't get on the aperture one. So for comparison, the Suray one is kind of just built so much better, has more features than what the aperture has. When it comes to this projector, Suray do actually recommends to not really have a light above 200 watts. Now, for that very reason, because it does get very hot, and so does every other projector. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're sort of capped to 200 watts. They do actually have a fan that you can put on, and it does make it a lot cooler because I did put the Amaran 300C on there, and that's obviously a 300 watt light. It got really hot. I used the temperature gun, and then I actually put the fan on and then used a temperature gun to see what the temperature was like. It was significantly different, but it's still, you know, relatively hot because they do recommend 200 watts and under. You don't necessarily have to limit yourself to that though. You just have to understand that it does get hotter. Now, right now, I've got it on the 60X, which is just a 60 watt light. It's very basic and it's not going to heat up that much. I don't actually have the fan on right now. I've actually got it charging, but if it is hot, this is what you generally have on film sets anyway. I've always got leather gloves in my kit because some fixtures actually gets quite hot and, you know, too hot to actually touch. And I'm kind of used to this when it comes to film school because we did have regular globe lights as well, you know, tungsten globes, and they're extremely hot when you're actually trying to touch it, especially if, you know, you're utilizing the 12K that we actually had. That thing is incredibly hot. 12K, I think it's 12K, it's the HMI. Very, very, very hot. But yeah, definitely leather gloves is something that you should take into consideration. $5-10 from the hardware store, done. Now, one of the things that the previous version had was a specific focusing thing where you pretty much loosen it and then you just pull it forward and pull it back, kind of like focusing a lens. But this one, you literally just sort of roll it forward and it actually just focuses in, focuses out. It's very basic and easy to actually utilize. You don't have to try and, you know, pull it to the right distance, but a lot of projectors are actually the older version. This is kind of like a newer sort of improved design, which is fantastic. They're trying to innovate different ways of just making it easier to focus on a particular point. Now, one of the interesting things about having a projector like this, you can actually create scenes like this. So realistically, in these type of scenarios, you're trying to create a certain mood, a certain vibe. So this is kind of like a night scene. I've got 2 key lights outside, 300Cs with a really bluish sort of tone. And I've got the 60 X right here with the projector, projecting this shape on me. Now, one of the cool things about this is that you can make those shapes really sharp and defined, or you can defocus it and make it look, I suppose, less defined. You can see here the shutter effect. I'm actually looking at the screen, but yeah, the shutter effect here, you can actually defocus it or make it harsher. So if I didn't want it like that, I could change it with literally just with the dial. And when it comes to this actual zoom right here, where you can have 18 degrees to 36 degrees, they've added this sort of rubber ring around there. So it's easier to grip. You're not actually gripping onto hot metal as well, which is obviously really good. It's just amazing to use. And if you don't know what the zoom function is on this, essentially it just projects a smaller shape or a larger shape. Alternatively, you can actually just pick up your light and move further backwards, but obviously in tighter situations, this isn't possible. So having a zoom lens on here is pretty handy and quite versatile. Now, one thing you can actually do is utilize the cutters on the projector. So you can see these harsh lines right here. Essentially, this is giving me like a moonlight sort of vibe, that there's sort of strong moonlight coming in through the window and just sort of hitting on the edge, giving me some harsh lines. So, you know, if you don't actually have this, it doesn't sell it as much. I mean, you could turn it off and sort of see the effects that, yeah, there is still a little bit of a harsh line there because of where my key light is. But if you actually add this, there we go. It just sort of sells the effect that there is that moonlight coming in through the window. Now, the great thing about the cutters on this projector as well is that you can get really creative, and essentially this kind of effect right now, you can't really achieve any other way unless you're cutting a shape out of a cardboard and putting it directly in front of your light. Like this Gobo projector just makes it so much easier to do these effects, get a little bit more creative and tell the story in just a different way, which I find is really, really cool. It's just, it's going to help you increase your levels of cinematography. It's going to take you to that next level if you're willing to learn. Like, I am still practicing all these kind of different techniques, and I'm finding it really fun playing with colors, lights, temperature, this projector, Gobos. So fun. Now, when it comes to the end of this thing, they've actually added a lens cap as well, which is great because you don't want to scratch the front of the element, specifically if you do want to have, you know, really nice sharp lines and stuff. But they've actually added a filter thread on the inside, and you can actually screw on some colored pieces in here. I think they've attached, I think it's a red, blue and yellow that you can actually screw into. And then obviously if you have like a 300C like I've got, you can pretty much change whatever color you want because it's complete RGB. But that is a fantastic thing to have, and it just makes it so much more versatile than just a projector and Gobo mount. So you can actually change the colors on there as well. Now, another big thing that we did actually request was this 1/4 mount on here, because some of the lights that you actually utilize this could be a very small 60 watt, you know, light, and they are very light, and you don't want to be putting so much strain on that Bowens mount, specifically if you are attaching it to a small light. You can pretty much just attach the, I suppose, tripod or light stand directly to the Gobo and have the light on the end, so it's a bit more balanced and not putting so much strain, not just obviously on your light Bowens mount itself, but the actual tilt support bracket thing that actually puts it directly onto a light stand. So that's generally where you're actually going to be adding a lot of stress to. Now, the Gobo set is probably one of the major things that they actually changed, and for a massive benefit. And this thing right here is phenomenal compared to the last version. It doesn't sort of flop around willy-nilly. You can't actually pull these cutters out. The last version, you could literally fully pull it out. These ones are actually just in there, how every other projector and Gobo set actually is, which is great. And this one just slides in there perfectly, sits in there. It's not going to fall out like the last one actually did. Now, you can see, depending on the mood that you actually want, this is very easy to do. I've got 2 key lights outside, Amaran 300Cs at 3200 degrees Kelvin, and I've got this Gobo on the 60X. Very simple, and the differences between having the Gobo on and off, as you can see that, put it back on, like, it's something. It just gives it that little bit more life to the scene. but you don't actually have to use it. That's the thing as well, is that just because you have it doesn't necessarily mean you have to use it every single time. This sort of still is side lit. It still looks perfectly fine for 99% of jobs. There is just that, 1% of job that looks quite nice, but it also sells the fact that there is sunset there as well. And I can actually completely change all these and make it fully moonlit scene as well. So this is meant to kind of sell the fact that there is moonlight coming in from that way. I can actually have my eye light here and just make it a little bit warmer as well. So put that on 3200. I've got a little bit of warmth coming from this direction. I can pump that up a little bit more as well. There are so many different ways you can actually light that. What does it look like? There. So this is actually a candle. I could actually take that off, light that candle, and it will make it look like this little MC Pro is actually the candle that's lighting me. And I can actually utilize the candle effect on that one as well. So I've got color contrast coming within this scene as well, which is pretty important if you do want to try and make the scene a little bit more depth to the scene and more mood. So that's definitely a way to do it. So look, all up, it's a premium product, but definitely if you are really into lighting and cinematography, DP sort of work, this thing is absolutely amazing and really should be in your kit. I always say you need to start investing in more lights, because lighting a scene is extremely important and really can take a very bland, mood and really create it something unique and different. And this thing will actually help you do that. So if you enjoyed this video, please obviously give it a thumbs up. I will put the link in the description below where you can actually purchase one of these, and yeah, definitely recommended by me. I absolutely love this product. I think they've done really well, and like I said, from a branding standpoint, that is a very good, impressive move to make. You make a mistake, you try and improve on that product, and you actually release a really good product. So anyway, guys, see you in the next one. Let's get it.